The world often teaches us to be loud, to speak up and defend our positions, fearing that silence equates to weakness or being overlooked in the clamor. We are conditioned to fill voids, to explain and over-explain every nuance, inadvertently revealing our strategies and vulnerabilities to those around us. This pervasive tendency, however, often leads to us losing significant leverage. As the quiet observers, those who haven't yet spoken a single word are frequently the most dangerous players in any given scenario or interaction. They meticulously listen, they carefully map out the terrain of the conversation, and they often win before we've even finished making our initial point or argument. This dynamic highlights a fundamental misunderstanding of true power and influence. True strength often lies not in vocal dominance or incessant chatter, but in strategic restraint and a profound understanding of timing. The loudest person in the room rarely holds the true advantage or sway, for their noise provides a clear and undeniable target for others to exploit, while silence, conversely, allows for keen observation and calculated action. This profound lesson, the strategic utility of quietude, was understood deeply by ancient philosophers, particularly the Stoics, who mastered its application. They recognized that a deliberate pause, an unhurried contemplation, could be far more impactful than any hurried or impulsive declaration. In their view, the constant need to articulate every thought or feeling was a sign of inner turmoil, a lack of self-control and composure. Instead, they advocated for a mindful approach, where words were chosen carefully and silence became a powerful tool for self-mastery and external influence. This isn't about being passive or withdrawn, but about active, engaged listening, absorbing information without the immediate pressure to formulate a response. It's about letting others exhaust their arguments, reveal their biases, and expose their weaknesses, all while maintaining an unreadable composure. The quiet individual becomes a sponge, soaking up every detail, every nuance, every unspoken cue from their environment and interlocutors. They gather intelligence, piece together the puzzle of human interaction, and only then, when the time is ripe and the strategy is clear, do they choose to engage, often with a single, well-placed statement. This measured approach contrasts sharply with the modern inclination to fill every conversational gap, to always have an immediate retort. We are taught that quick wit and verbal agility are paramount, but often, these very traits can lead to hasty decisions and regrettable words. The power of silence lies in its ability to create space, both externally in a conversation and internally within one's own mind. This space allows for reflection, for a deeper understanding of the situation, and for the formulation of a truly effective and impactful response. It's a deliberate choice to withhold, to observe, to process, rather than to react impulsively to every stimulus or provocation. Such strategic restraint often disarms opponents more effectively than any aggressive verbal assault ever could, leaving them bewildered. They expect a fight, a debate, a volley of words, and instead encounter a void, a calm and unyielding presence that offers no immediate purchase for their aggression. This unexpected lack of engagement forces them to confront their own assumptions, their own expectations, and often their own internal anxieties. Ultimately, the lesson is clear. True influence isn't about volume, but about precision, about timing, and about the profound strength that comes from mastering the art of strategic, purposeful silence. It's a testament to the idea that sometimes the most powerful statement is the one that remains unsaid, allowing its absence to speak volumes. This quiet power enables one to control the narrative without uttering a word, guiding the interaction through subtle cues and calculated non-responses. It transforms a potential confrontation into an opportunity for observation, turning perceived weakness into an undeniable, formidable strength. Embracing silence is not a sign of surrender, but a declaration of control, a profound assertion of one's inner peace and strategic acumen. It is the quiet observer who truly understands the game and ultimately prevails. Building upon the understanding that strategic restraint is a powerful asset, the Stoics, like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, recognize silence not merely as an absence of sound, but as a potent and often overlooked weapon. They saw it as a tool not just for profound listening, but for effectively disarming opposition and asserting profound control. When confronted with provocation, a deliberate lack of immediate response deprives the attacker of their intended target, causing their initial anger and aggression to dissipate into thin air, finding no resistance to push against. This unaddressed fury, lacking any echo or wall to bounce off, eventually collapses inward, replaced by a profound sense of confusion and gnawing doubt within the aggressor. Consider negotiations, for instance. A well-timed, deliberate pause after stating a price or a crucial condition masterfully shifts the psychological burden onto the other party, creating an uncomfortable void. They are then compelled to break the uncomfortable silence, often inadvertently revealing their true hand, their underlying motivations, or their ultimate limits, simply to fill the quiet. Furthermore, silence acts as a powerful, unyielding mirror in moments of heated conflict, reflecting behavior back. When one individual rages, their voice escalating with uncontrolled emotion and volume, becoming increasingly shrill. The serene stillness and composed silence of another starkly highlights the aggressor's own unhinged, disproportionate outburst. This contrast underscores the aggressor's lack of control, often shaming them into a more rational demeanor, as they hear the unhinged quality of their own voice against the backdrop of calm. This strategic, intentional use of silence extends beyond external interactions. It is also deeply internal. It involves cultivating an inner citadel of emotional detachment and mental tranquility, a sanctuary of the mind. Within this inner sanctuary, one can observe situations without immediate emotional entanglement, without being swept away, allowing for a conscious choice of response, rather than a reactive, impulsive outburst. A response is then offered only when it truly serves one's higher purpose or long-term goals, rather than being dictated by fleeting impulses or the need to simply fill the air. This profound practice even extends to quieting the incessant internal noise of self-doubt and pervasive overthinking, fostering clarity and unwavering resolve, turning inner turmoil into focused energy. The Stoics understood that the loudest person in the room is rarely the most dangerous or influential. Instead, true power often resides with the one who has not yet spoken, observing and strategizing. This creates an uneasy gravity, a palpable tension when someone sits still while others scramble to fill the air. Silence, in a world addicted to constant noise and chatter, becomes the last untraceable weapon, a hidden advantage. Yet most are taught the opposite: to speak up, to make their voice heard, to defend their position vigorously. This often leads to firing back fast, explaining and even over-explaining every detail. One might hand over their entire strategy, wrapped in sentences that were utterly unnecessary to utter. And while they talked incessantly, others listened intently, mapping their every move and vulnerability. The opponent often won the exchange long before the speaker had even finished their point. Epictetus famously noted that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, to listen twice as much. But this isn't solely about active listening. It's about the profound psychological effects silence has on others. When you don't respond to a direct provocation, the attacker fundamentally loses their intended target. Their words hit nothing but air, producing no echo, no resistance, nothing to push against. Anger, by its very nature, needs a wall to bounce off. Remove that wall, and its energy collapses inward. They feel it immediately, a flash of confusion, followed by a creeping sense of doubt. Then comes the slow, unsettling realization that they've been fruitlessly swinging at smoke. In negotiation settings, the deliberate pause after stating a number is far more powerful than the number itself. State your price clearly, then stop, allowing the room to hold its breath in anticipation. The first person to speak after such a silence invariably loses leverage, not because talking is inherently weak, but because the silence itself was already doing the crucial work of creating pressure. Interrupting that silence means interrupting your own hard-won advantage, ceding control unnecessarily. In conflict, silence functions as a powerful, unblinking mirror, reflecting behavior back to its source. When someone raises their voice in anger and you calmly lower yours, or say nothing at all, they are forced to hear themselves, truly hear their own volume for the very first time. The volume that felt entirely justified a second ago now sounds unhinged, even absurd, against your profound stillness. You didn't need to correct them verbally. The stark contrast of your presence did all the work. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an entire empire, wrote his deepest truths in a private journal, a personal record no one else was ever meant to read or scrutinize. He didn't engage in public arguments with senators. Instead, he processed complex issues in silence, acted with precise, deliberate intention, and allowed the tangible results to speak for themselves. His actions spoke in a language far louder and more convincing than any rhetoric could achieve. There's a specific technique deeply embedded in Stoic practice, known as the Inner Citadel. This is a mental space you retreat to when the external noise becomes overwhelming, or a deliberate strategy. You don't physically leave the room. Instead, you leave the immediate emotional reaction. Your body remains present, your eyes observe, but your emotional center pulls behind an invisible wall. From this protected vantage point, you observe, you choose, and you respond only if it truly serves you.